Well, we're back on the blog, everybody, this week, and I have Lori. Is it DeJong? I meant to ask you before we started recording.
That's okay. It's DeYoung, like a Y.
DeYoung. I know I
Yeah.
couldn't remember from last time because I've had Lori on the blog before, and so I'd like to welcome you back. I'm thrilled to have you here again. We had so much fun last time.
We did. Enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, so Lori DeYoung.
Yes.
Y'all, okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna let you
Like,
introduce
yeah.
yourself and say your name and tell us
Okay.
about your life, your family, what you want us to know, please.
All right. It is Lori DeYoung. It sounds like a Y. It's Dutch. My husband is from Dutch lineage. My husband of 31 years. And we live here in Georgetown, Texas, which is just above Austin. And we have our daughter, Michaela. She's 24. She lives up in Arlington, Texas. So, close. Not as close as mama would like, but she's close. And she's
Mm-hmm.
living her best life up there. Um, and we have our two fur babies, Buddy and Lily, who are sleeping on the floor behind me over here. And yeah, that's about it.
All
And
right.
my mom lives here in the area, so we're just kind of this little close-knit family right here.
Well, that sounds good. And we were talking before we started recording that I also have family in Texas. And so in the Dallas area. So we get to go out there occasionally and visit. Usually about once a year, at least we'll try to head
Yeah,
out there. So it's a nice place. It
it
gets
is. I love
super hot
Dallas.
though.
Yeah, it's hot right now. It's getting warm. And yeah, so like if you visit, hopefully it's like in the fall or something
Yeah, that's the
because
best time.
when it's not sweltering out, because it's hard to
Right.
really do anything outside right now.
Yeah. Well, let's jump into talking about writing because
Yeah,
that's what we're here for, right?
absolutely.
So let's start out with just talking about your genre, like what you write and what inspired you to write that genre.
Okay. I write Christian contemporary romance. I've always just really loved romance. When you pick up a romance, you're going to leave at the end of it more than likely happy because your characters are happy. And what makes a romance fun to read and fun to write, but also a challenge to write, is that journey from the front of the book to the end of the book when most readers know, okay, I kind of know, I mean, it's going to end happy,
Mm-hmm.
but what's that journey like? And is it going to be worth me sticking around for this entire book? So that's the fun and the challenge of being a romance writer is just making that journey compelling enough to keep your reader on the road to the end.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I love romance. When I first started writing, I was writing toward Harlequin super romance, which is secular. And I just, it didn't fit me well. It just didn't fit me well. And that was in the early 2000s. And Christian fiction was just kind of coming into its own a little bit more, as far as being edgier, more real world issues kind of stuff being brought up. I loved Christian fiction. I read the Grace Livingston Hills and stuff when I was a young wife, and that type of thing. And they were enjoyable reads. But when I thought about what I wanted to write, usually the stories that came to me involved edgier things that really wouldn't have played back then if
Mm-hmm.
I had wanted to write Christian fiction. Whereas now people really want to see people characters dealing with real life issues and stuff. So that's what I really enjoy the contemporary market now
Yeah.
because you really do get to delve into those things and real life is hard enough. So when you get to see characters overcoming real life issues, I just think it brings hope to people and hopefully,
Yeah.
maybe encourages people to just keep on keeping on that God's always with us.
Yeah.
So that's why I really love writing Christian fiction. And then romance is just because it's fun. It's just
Yeah.
fun to have a nice, happy couple.
Yeah, I like how you're saying that nowadays the Christian fiction is a little edgier. You can
Mhm.
write real world problems and issues and things like that, where some years ago in Christian fiction, that really wasn't um, accepted as much as it
Mm-mm.
is now, which is good for me because that's what I'm writing. In fact, the scene I was
Yeah.
working on today, I was thinking about it as you were talking. I'm like, I would have never, never gone
Right.
over some years ago. So maybe that's why God had me wait so late in life to
Mhm.
start because he knew
Yeah.
what he wanted me to write, and it would not have gone well
Yeah.
before.
Same here. Yeah. I'm late in life. I mean, I started in my late 30s. I was almost 40 when I first started really writing in earnest, actually learning the craft.
Hmm.
But I had a 10-year hiatus where I didn't write at all. And I regret that, but it is what it is. And when I came back, the market had changed so much. But so I just, tried to really educate myself in the market the way it was now, or the business, so to speak. And
Hmm.
I loved all the new opportunities for Christian
Hmm.
writers out there, whether you self-publish. I'm with a small press,
Hmm.
um, because at my age, I didn't want to wait through the whole trying to agent, and you
Yeah.
need a huge following. And I didn't even have a website when I got back into writing,
Hmm.
because when I stopped writing, hardly anybody had a website and nobody
Right.
used the word platform. And I came back
Yeah.
after, I quit writing in 2009. I came back in 2020 and I'm like, what is platform? I just didn't know any of that. So it was a real huge learning curve that first year back out. And,
Mhm.
but what was neat about it was with COVID, not that COVID was neat, I'm not saying that, but
Yes.
so many, and your Virginia virtual conference is one of the best out there, but
Thank
so
you.
many of them went virtual. A lot of the classes, a lot of the mentorships, a lot of the conferences, they all went virtual. Retreats, even, you could take a whole weekend retreat, never leave your house, and you were on a writer's retreat.
Mhm.
um, but because of that, they were a lot less expensive, and so I was really able to take advantage of just educating myself. And
Yes.
my debut novel last year was a result of homework from one of those classes that I took. And I had never planned to write the book. And I wrote the book and sold it to a small press. And the rest is,
Yeah.
history. We signed a 3-book contract from that one book. So it's just been really such a neat, fun ride, to be on
Yeah.
since I came back to writing.
That's
So,
awesome. I'm so happy
yeah.
for you and
Yeah.
the path that God is taking you down right now.
Yeah.
Um,
It's
so
my
you're talking
dream.
about writing Christian fiction. So part of that is extending that hope that you talked about to other people. How do you go about doing that in your books without what they say being preachy?
That is such an excellent question. And I watch that all the time. And sometimes I wonder, am I too far the other direction where it seems like I don't want to talk about, God or stuff? But then I'm like, no, because it's pretty much in your face that they're trying, the whole series is called the True Calling series. Every book is going to be central theme, overarching theme is following God's call on your life. How do you hear it? How do you follow it? How do you stick to it? And I I try to make it more real life. Like, for instance, with me, a lot of times when I'm talking to a friend, a Christian friend, or whatever, and something comes up and I want to encourage, I'll be like, hey, remember you're God's masterpiece.
Mm.
But I don't necessarily say, well, in Ephesians or Philippians or wherever that is,
Right.
I don't always remember the reference anyway, but
Mhm.
I don't speak like that. I don't say, well,
Right.
the Bible says, or
Right.
in
Right.
this book, and there are times I will share, scriptures with friends that need encouragement. I'll say, hey, look at this, look at, this verse I found or whatever. But when I'm conversationally, a lot of times scripture comes in to our conversation where we never say this is in what book of the Bible. And so I try to do that with my characters and make it more conversational.
Mhm.
Um, there is a scene where my male protagonist in Love's True Home, the book that's coming out later that's coming out June 25th, um, where he's trying to make a decision, a really heavy decision. And it's not between good and bad, it's between good and good. Which way, God, do you want me to go? And he just recalls, the scripture that he heard about, commit whatever you do to the Lord and he will bless it. And so that gave him the peace to say, either way I go could be the right way. So I'm going
Mhm.
to choose, the way that I feel led right now, and, just honor God with that direction. And
Mhm.
he doesn't necessarily say, oh, yes. And I think in the book, it does say, the verse that the pastor spoke on from whatever book, but it's not, book and chapter and verse, all that. So
Mhm. Yeah.
I just really try to make their faith just their lifestyle,
Right.
just like how it is with us. They say to I'm going to butcher this, but they say to, preach the gospel and use words if necessary, that we should be living the gospel. We should be living
Mhm.
the good news and living as people of hope and joy and peace. And even when things are
Absolutely.
tough.
Yeah.
And so it just becomes part of that, your life. And that's what I try with my Christian characters. I try to do that. Of course, I write characters that maybe not as strong in the faith or may not even be in the faith. And that's a whole different animal. But with my Christian characters, I try to just make the spirituality of it just part of their lives and who they are.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So talking more about your book, where is the setting? Like, where's it located?
It
Where the
isn't,
story plays out?
yeah, it is in Arlington.
Okay.
All three books in the series are going to be in Arlington because they're all based around a student ministry that the male protagonist in the first book founded for kids just looking for validation, or kids that just need a safe place to be, where they're valued, where they're affirmed, where they learn about God, where they can bring others, to the Lord. And so he started this student ministry while he was in grad school. That's the backstory of the first book. And so Connect Up is what the name of that student ministry is. So it's kind of the central character, I guess you could say, in each of the books, because all of the books center around Connect Up and the student ministry. And I answer the question?
Yeah, yeah, you did. And what
Okay,
I'm wondering
Arlington.
now,
Yes.
yeah, what I'm wondering now is the second book, how does it relate to the first book other than the location? Are there different characters, different main characters?
Different main characters, but Zane and Allie are both in Love's True Calling. So Allie did not make a good first impression in Love's True Calling because she's the ex-girlfriend of the male protagonist in that book. And so when she comes back, she kind of makes a play to get him back. So of course, readers are rooting for Wyatt and Harper in that book. Allie all of a sudden just kind of comes back, and she's not on screen long. I mean, it's not like she doesn't, it's not like a continuing arc in the book, but there is a spot in there, where she kind of makes a play to get him back. And but I just felt for her because we've all made decisions from a broken heart, that we wish we could take back.
Hmm.
And I thought, oh, there's so much more to her
Yeah.
than this. And I knew then she was going to be book two.
Mhm.
And I wrote out this entire story concept for her. And then I'm an intuitive writer. I kind of plot the major plot points, and then I just kind of write the scenes by the seat of my pants to get to each of those plot points. And so things happen sometimes that I don't expect.
Yes.
And Zane popped up at the end of Love's True Calling, and I went, "Oh, that's the guy for Allie." And I threw out that entire concept I had for her and started completely over and it just fell together. It was just
Mm.
really fun. And so, yeah, that was a lot of fun to write. So Harper and Wyatt do show up in book two. They actually play quite a big part because even though Allie's his ex, they've all become very good friends now because they all work in the ministry. And I wanted to show that. I wanted to show that you can get over heartbreak and still have a good relationship, with someone that you once loved. And she
Mhm.
finally had to come to the realization that he was her first love, but he wasn't her forever love. And
Mhm.
she's okay with that, especially when she meets Zane.
Yeah.
And so that I love series writings because I love to be able to see the
Yeah.
progression. I love that Harper and Wyatt show up in book two and they'll be in book three.
Hmm.
Book three is Shannon's story, and she's in all the first two books as well. In fact, she's in the first chapter of Love's True Calling, of my first book, and then the third book is going to be her story. And so we do see the characters; they just don't have points of view. I only use two points of view, so yeah. So it's a different story, different main characters, but you still see the same characters throughout the book.
I like your characters' names. In fact, I have a granddaughter named Harper, and I have another granddaughter named Allie.
Oh, funny story about Allie. When I first wrote Allie in Love's True Calling, she was Melanie. And I don't know how you are. I don't want to sound like I'm being overly dramatic or anything, but every now and then it's happened where I'll name a character and somehow along the way, and I say, they're telling me that's not my name. And really, it's just because it just doesn't fit. And I love the name Melanie, but I was referring to her as Mel. And I thought that just it doesn't fit her the way I envisioned her and stuff. I'm just like, that just, and so I was actually staying with a friend out of town who's a writer friend. And I was staying with her and her husband. And at dinner one night, I was like, we were talking writing as we always do when we're together. And he's very patient and very, he's very supportive of her. So he was in the conversation with us. And I said, I'm struggling with Wyatt's ex-girlfriend because I named her Melanie and she's not a fan. And I can't find a name for her, but I feel like it starts with a vowel. And her husband just spouted off, what about Allison? And I'm like, Allison, and I could call her Allie, and it just worked. And I don't know why. I can't really explain
Yeah.
why it just worked differently. But
Mhm.
I've had that happen on a couple of occasions where I've had to change a character's name
Yeah.
because it just didn't work
Mhm.
for some reason,
Yeah, I've done that too. And my granddaughter is also Allison, called Allie. So,
Oh, I love that. I love
yeah,
that. Yeah, that was a fun story on that one.
yeah. So, what about research? Do you have to do much research for contemporary romance, or you got all of that down because you've
Oh,
lived
yeah.
it?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I know all about being a nurse practitioner when I get sick at the sight of blood. I do research, and some of the research is just kind of fun stuff, um, like what cars they drive. For some reason, when Zane popped on the scene, I was like, oh my goodness, he drives a vintage Bronco. I just knew he did. And I learned to drive stick shift in a vintage Bronco. But I just what I envisioned in him. And so I went online and started researching, vintage Broncos from like the 70s. And I mean, we're talking vintage. And I built this whole Bronco for him, and everything. And then, of course, everything that pops up on my computer is about Ford Broncos. So I research that kind of stuff. But I also research, for instance, he went to seminary. I've never been to seminary. So I did some research on just some seminaries and what kind of degrees you can get at a seminary and how long it takes to get a seminary degree. And that I didn't want him to be, he wasn't a preacher, but he's a ministry coordinator. And so, as that, what kind of seminary degree would he have for that? So I did that kind of research. She's a nurse practitioner, pediatric. So I just kind of did a little bit of research about pediatric nurses and what nurse practitioners can do as opposed to what nurses can do. And they can prescribe, they can do prescriptions and things like that. Because I wanted her to not be a doctor, but be kind of elevated a little bit above like what an RN or something could do. I wanted her to be able to do more. And then, of course, the most fun part of Love's True Home was Guatemala.
Mm,
She comes from a missionary background. She was born in Central America. Her parents were medical missionaries, and they were the ones that would go to these remote villages to set up mission medical clinics. And then once it was up and running, they'd get moved to another one. So she has moved around all over. And um, the last one that she had been on was in Guatemala, and that's where her father still is. And so I was just starting, this was back in 2022, and I was just kind of getting started. And I do most of my research, I have to say probably 99% of my research is done online. I search engine stuff. I just go through and I just read and read and read and read and read. And or if I know somebody, I'll say, hey, you're a nurse practitioner, tell me a little bit about the job. But I knew nothing about Guatemala. So I'm researching, and it was overwhelming because there's so many different areas. Just like if someone didn't know the United States started researching the United States, they'd go, okay, wait, there's beach, there's desert, there's mountains, what do I write? And so I was really just overwhelmed with it. Well, I went to the 2022 ACFW conference, and the first person I met on the very first day was Natalie, and I'm going to I always get it wrong, but anyway, Natalie. And we were on our way to one of the events, and we were just talking. And so we introduced ourselves, and I asked where she was from, and she's from a town real close to here. And I'm like, oh, I live in Georgetown. I said, you should come to our writers group. She goes, oh, well, I'm a missionary in Guatemala.
oh my
I was like,
goodness.
What now? Say that again. And so I literally I stopped and she kind of stopped and I said, "You're not going to believe this." I said, "But I'm researching Guatemalan missions right now because of the backstory in my book. And I want to have them go to Guatemala during the story in my book." Well, we did once we got back and once Love's True Calling was out the door and all that done, I was really honing Love's True Home or really getting into it. We had a couple of Zoom calls where she just answered my thousands of questions.
Mm.
And she's like, "I'll send you some pictures." I'm like, "Okay, that'd be great." She sent me like over 200 pictures and
Oh,
videos of stuff.
wow.
And I was like, I need a fictional town. So if you could maybe give me, two or three suggestions of what I might call my fictional town. She sent me a list of probably 30 different names that would have worked for a
Oh,
fictional town.
wow. That's
It was
awesome.
amazing. She's all over my acknowledgments in Love's
Yeah,
True Home
I
because
bet.
without her, Guatemala would not have had nearly the color and the scope that it has in that I feel like it has in the book. And so that was just a gift from God that he
Mm.
just put her in my path. And then this past Christmas, she was home for Christmas and we met and had lunch and just a wonderful, wonderful young woman just sold out to God and doing his work in
Yeah.
Guatemala, where it's harder
Mhm.
than I thought it was. There's just a lot going on in Guatemala that
'Cause,
not it's not pretty,
no,
and
I've been to Guatemala on a mission trip myself,
yeah.
and
So,
it's
yeah,
hard. It's a hard place.
yeah.
Visit
So I
place.
just love her and I'm so thankful for her. But that part of my research was so much fun, just actually getting to talk to a missionary and see all of her pictures and stuff. It really grounded me.
Yeah.
But I couldn't afford to go there myself, So anyway, it
So,
was fun.
as writers, we really pour our heart and soul into the stories that we write. And, God teaches us a lot as we're writing. And I think we, go into it too with the hope of something that readers might get out of it. So, for this book that's coming out, Love's True Home, what are you hoping that readers are going to take away from that when they finish reading it?
Just that home means different things to different people. And it isn't necessarily this, where I sleep and eat and live with my husband. This is my home, but home can also just be where your people are, where your heart is. And it may be more mobile as opposed to stationary. Your home may be thousands of miles from the rest of your family, or you may live next door to your mother. It's home is just different for different people. And both of these two characters, and I didn't know when I first started writing that it was going to be called Love's True Home. I always start writing a book and then I have to kind of pick a title from there. And I realized what they're both looking for is a sense of home.
Mhm.
She went all these used it wasn't an unstable life as a child, and she had a wonderful childhood being on these mission fields and getting to do some really cool things, but she never felt home. And so when she came to the United States for school, for college, she was like, "Oh, I this is where I want to live forever. I want to dig my roots in. I don't want to be moving when I have kids, I don't want to be moving all around, and stuff." So her sense of home was place. It was all about, I just need to be in one place, dig my roots in. Zane had the opposite experience. He was raised in a small town, lived in the same house that he was brought home to when he was a baby, till he left home at 18. And he just wanted adventure. He wanted to see everything. So he moved all the time. Like I think in 13 years, he moved like 7 times or something like that. So um, because he was always at first it wasn't about God. He was very bitter when he first moved, in his backstory. But when he was brought back to his faith, his childhood faith, it did become all about God. Where do you want me to go? And he just followed that. God sent him to this place to start a youth ministry and to another place to start a youth ministry and then to go to seminary, and so he was always moving and he loved that. He was always, what's next? Okay, we've got this down. What's next? And then Allie comes into his life. His dream is to be a foreign missionary. That's what he wants to do. And she's not aware of that at first because they're working together in this student ministry, Connect Up. And but when he meets her father, she can see, oh wow, he's like just tuned in to everything her father was saying. And And so that's when she realizes, wow, we want different things, because he wants to go, and I don't want to go back to the mission field. I've been there, done that. That was my whole life. And now I'm here now, and I've got my career and all this stuff. So they were just looking for completely different things until the other came into their life. And so I think, just to take away, just where's God leading you with regard to where does he want to make your home? Now, as Christians, our ultimate home is not here. Thank the Lord,
Yes.
So this is all temporary. But with regard to an earthly home, just where is it where God can use you the best? Where are the people that have your heart? That's your home. And that also, just that sometimes we get very busy serving the Lord, that sometimes we can miss his cues, that just maybe he wants to do something else with us. We kind of get into the, hey, I'm doing this, and it's all good stuff. We're bringing people to the Lord, or we're serving the Lord, or serving our fellow man, whatever it is. But we're kind of missing that still small voice, because we're so busy. We're so busy. We're serving. So Allie had to slow down a little bit and see if maybe God was asking her to do something else. So
Yeah.
just those things. Yeah.
Good. Sounds good. So sadly, we're out of time and have to wrap
Oh, that
up.
went fast.
But I know it went super fast, didn't it? So we're going to see this book. You said it's launching June 25th.
Yep.
And I believe our interview together is going to go live on June 26th. So by the
Ooh,
time everybody's
wonderful.
watching this, your book
Yeah.
will be a baby out in the world. And
Yep.
so everybody has access to it and can purchase. And when you do and you read it, if you love it, or even like it, do a review. Reviews
Please. Yes.
are gold for authors. So please leave a review on Amazon, Goodreads, BookBub,
Yep.
any places like
Any
that,
and all of it.
anywhere,
Yep. I actually
everywhere.
have a copy of it right here.
Oh, do you? Yeah,
Here
let's
it is.
see. Aw, it's so
So that's
pretty.
Zane and Allie. So
So
yeah,
pretty.
so I just got my author copies, so that was fun.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah. I can imagine that is a really fun thing to open that box of books.
It
And
is, and it
so,
was just as fun the second time. I
yeah.
didn't know if it would be, but when I saw the box, I was like, "Oh my goodness, it's here!"
Yeah. And you have a third book coming out in the series when?
I do. It's going to be out next June, and it's going to
Okay.
be called Love's True Measure.
Okay.
And I also have a Christmas novella coming out in October that I'm super excited about, because I had never written a novella, and it's just a lighthearted reunion, second chance romance story that I just had a ball writing. So that comes out in October, as it's part of a 4-part novella collection called A Match Made at Christmas. And my story is Jingle Bell Matchmakers. So it was just a lot of fun.
I remember you telling me about that back in December when we met at a writing retreat. You were working on that.
Yeah,
That's
that
fun.
was a fun one to write.
Well, thanks for chatting with me again, Lori. It's been a lot of fun, and I hope that your book just goes far and wide and that you
Thank
keep
you.
having amazing success on this journey.
I appreciate that. This was so much fun. I could talk to you for an hour,
I know, we
but I
could keep
love talking
going.
writing,
I know we could keep
writing with
going.
writers. Yeah.
All right.
So
Well, we're
thank
going to
you,
have to
Regina.
stop the recording because I'm sure people who are watching, they're like, I got stuff to do, people.
Yeah,
All
absolutely. Thank you so much.
right. Thank you.